Hello, and welcome to Heart and Seek, the podcast where we unravel the threads that bind us. With curious minds and open hearts, we dive into personal stories, shared experiences, and the intricate connections that shape our lives. I'm your host, Chanda, and together we'll explore what it means to be human across borders, beliefs, and backgrounds. Welcome to episode 2 of Heart and Seek. If it's your first time here, thank you for joining. And if you're returning, I'm so grateful you came back. Be sure to follow me and turn the notification bell on. I'll drop a new episode every Monday. Today, I'll be talking about my early cultural influences from family, friends, church, school, and the wider community. I wanted firstly to start with a definition of what culture is, and I came across these two on the online Cambridge Dictionary. The first refers to the way of life, especially the general customs and beliefs, of a particular group of people at a particular time. It goes on to describe the attitudes, behavior, opinions, etc., of a particular group of people within society. Now, I chose to tackle roots and foundation in these first episodes because I believe that in seeking to understand each other and the complex beings that we are as people, we need to be curious about our different backstories. The ideas, experiences, and lessons we were taught by those around us, as well as the observations we made about how to live with ourselves and others, likely had a profound influence on how we now show up. When we look only at the superficial, it can be easy to pass our quick judgments, and the analogy of seeing just the tip of the iceberg and not the substantive mass beneath it come to mind. It's important, though, that I make it clear up front that my experience is unique to me and doesn't reflect the experience of every other person born and raised in Zambia, let alone the rest of the African continent. Experiences are nuanced, regardless of where in the world you grew up. In the first episode, I spoke about being raised in part by my maternal grandmother. This was a woman who'd raised 8 children in a mud hut as a part-time single mother because my grandfather had a second wife, farming the land and raising her children without the trappings of modern life like electricity or running water. And in a time where pre- and postnatal care for women were a luxury. She taught me how to cook food that didn't require measurement of ingredients or recipes, but still came out great, and could handle hot pots without kitchen mitts. This was a woman that was clean and tidy. She washed clothes with her hands in a basin outside, and having converted to Catholicism as a young woman, she prayed the rosary at least once a day and never missed church on Sundays. She could look up at the sky in the morning and predict the weather of the day. She knew when the rain would fall and for how long. She was so in touch with nature. She, like many other people that were raised in the village, were medicine women, knowing what herbs, roots, leaves, or bark could be used on their own or concocted to heal a range of ailments. She hardly ever got ill. My mother carried this practice over, and some of that knowledge has passed down to me. Respect for elders without question was expected. So I had aunts and uncles connected to me by blood as well as by choice. You didn't dare talk back. You curtsied to greet them and applied a title to the start of their names if they were your elder cousins or siblings, to show your respect and the hierarchy that existed within the family line. Generosity and the spirit of Ubuntu, an African term that essentially means humanity to others, an understanding that I am because of who we all are, was commonly practiced. You didn't just show up to another person's home empty-handed. You took something: food, snacks, vegetables from your garden. Others did the same. You showed up to mourn when someone died, and you stayed to help cater to the guests, offering whatever support was needed, financially or otherwise. Prayer and a belief in the higher power, God, and for most Zambians, as followers of Christianity, Sundays were sacred. It was time to get into your Sunday best dress and go to your chosen place of worship. We attended Bible study and faith classes on Saturdays and Sundays. We said our prayers before each meal and prayed before we went to bed at night. We didn't just exist as our human selves. We understood that we were part of something bigger. Community was prized over individualism. I succeeded to share, and I did not exist in isolation of my neighbors or faith group. We greeted each other on the street as we walked by. We knew our neighbors by name. We visited each other's homes to check in and played with the children in those homes. Collective parenting was an unwritten rule, so I knew that if I was around town doing something I shouldn't have been, and an elder who knew my parents saw me, I would be questioned or cautioned, or the word would get back to my mum or dad. Education was highly prized. It was the way to make it in life. The end goal was to get a degree that would guarantee your success. Our traditions and culture as people reflected in the way we worshipped. Praises in churches rang loudly on Sundays. I saw how traditional rites were practiced and brought to life to celebrate the birth of a child, someone coming of age, getting married, or otherwise drawn on to settle family disputes, counsel a wayward child, or farewell the dead. As a young woman, and being the eldest daughter, there were a different set of expectations around family responsibility. To help maintain the home, to learn to cook, to pursue the highest standards of education nonetheless, but to also aim for marriage as an achievement in its own right, ideally with someone who shared the same faith and a common language. It would make things easier for everyone if our families shared the same language, customs, and values. Everywhere I went, there was mostly an abundance of people that looked like me. Even though I went to schools where I learnt and interacted with people of other races and ethnicities, so for the most part, I never questioned my belonging or identity. I just was. I was learning, taking in, and accepting the idea that life was about shared knowledge, collectivism rather than individuality, religious practice, respect for elders, and as a woman, chastity. That I needed just enough to not be boastful and needed to share and give away some of what I made. My world view was slowly forming. This was the world as I knew it, and I accepted that as truth. I had only a limited idea of how many other norms were out there, and that there was no one way to live that was right or better than another. They just were. I would only come to realize how many other norms existed many years later. So, as I did with episode 1, I leave you with some reflection points. What did you observe and learn from the environment you were raised in, within your family and external to it? Did you have anything to compare it to? What effect did it have on you, and what are the lasting implications? So, as I leave you to ponder all of that, I will invite you to join me back here next week for episode 3. In the meantime, please look after yourselves, be kind to yourself and to everyone you meet. Come back next week for more. Thanks for joining.